it's like to lose someone you love. Now, imagine someone you love being brutally murdered. Your son, your daughter.
The neighbors that went in found my son Neil, who was 27, lying at the top of the stairs, so covered in blood that they couldn't tell what his ethnicity was.
It took 5 hours for her to die. She bled to death on the operating table.
He met her with a shotgun and blew her head off.
Suffering the loss of a child to murder, it just rips your guts out. There's not any description that can possibly tell others how you feel. Nobody's prepared to go through what you have to when your child's been murdered.
Meet the other victims of violence, the families of the murder victims. What sets these people and tens of thousands like them apart is they were twice victimized, by murder and by the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system that failed to recognize that these people had any right to be involved in the process. The system that ignored them, forgot them, and often intentionally excluded them, stripping them of their rights and dignity. Here's one man's story, what happened when he learned his son had been shot.
We arrive at the scene, being confronted with a police officer. I'll never forget his words. He says, "There's been a crime committed against the state of California. It doesn't concern you. Go home and take care of yourself and your family." And here I am looking at my son die. Lying right there in the street.
Sadly, his case is not unique. When Lee Bertha Pickett Allen's 17-year-old son was killed, she got the message loud and clear. She was not very important.
They had held a preliminary hearing, but they didn't tell us because they didn't think that we were interested enough, that we were grieving, and we would not be interested in coming to a preliminary hearing. Being a parent means nothing.
Nothing until Marsys Law came along. Marsy Nicholas was young and talented, a college senior at UC Santa Barbara who loved to help others and planned to teach. She wanted to specialize in youngsters with mental and physical challenges, children who needed her. Marsy's family loved her very much, and she was particularly close to her brother Nick. Two happy kids, both terrific students, with all the potential in the world. But Marsy never lived to realize her potential, because during Thanksgiving weekend of 1983, Marsy's jealous ex-boyfriend lured her to his home and killed her.
Marsy was one of the most kind and selfless people that you could ever imagine. Like many victims, she was someone that really cared more about other people than herself. She was my best friend, and I loved her, and I still miss her. I miss her today.
Slowly, victims and their families started reaching out to one another and started asking questions. Why don't we have a constitutional right to be notified about hearings? Why don't we have the right to speak up and be heard in the criminal justice system? Why is it that defendants seem to have all the rights? Yes, defendants should have rights, as they do, but where are the rights for the victims?
We had no rights throughout the whole system and no input, and nobody asked us for any advice. Basically, they just told us to shut up and we'll let you know.
And this is how Marsys Law, California's Victims' Bill of Rights, came into being.
We're all potential victims. So anyone in California that thinks Marsys Law isn't for me, there's not a single victim out there who had someone murdered in their family that knew they'd be a victim. That's the nature of the victims' rights movement, is tomorrow there will be more members.
Despite strong opposition from special interests and a well-financed negative media campaign, California voters passed Marsys Law on November 4th, 2008. This is a Marsys Law Card. It's like Miranda rights, only for the good guys.
Today, every single district attorney, every police officer and sheriff's deputy are being trained in California about victims' rights, all because of Marsys Law.
And now, victims' families are no longer invisible, no longer forgotten. the way LaWanda Hawkins once was.
The Marsy Law changed that. It made you give the voice. It made your child come to life. It gave victims rights. It's not like bringing our kids back to life, but it made our children not die in vain.
The law includes these rights: the rights to justice and due process, the right to notice of all proceedings, the right to be present whenever the defendant has the right to be present, the right to be heard at critical stages of the criminal justice system, meaning before the defendant is arrested, before extradition, before bail or other release, before a plea bargain is accepted by the court, before sentence is imposed, before there is parole, the right to have victims' safety considered before any release decisions are made, the right to know when an offender is being released or escapes, the right to protect victims' confidential records, the right to refuse to submit to interrogation by a defendant or his lawyer before trial, the right to confer with the prosecutor, the right to be free from intimidation, harassment, or abuse, and to be treated with fairness and respect, the right to restitution, the right to a speedy trial and to reasonable finality, the right to enforce these special rights in any court, the right of victims to be informed of their Marsy rights, just as defendants are given their Miranda rights. Marsy's Law gives victims a meaningful opportunity to participate in parole proceedings, and in that way, they set their safety and the safety of the general public as the critical standard before any release decisions are made. It's a means to stop the regular nightmare of repeated opportunities for clearly dangerous offenders to be reconsidered for parole over and over again. And finally, Marsy's Law gives victims an independent voice in a system that for far too long marginalized and silenced them.